hello there. I did not see you. I'm just reading this classic English book called Watership Down. It's about rabbits murdering each other. But enough on that. Today I'm going to be telling you about a very specific virus that happened specifically in the 1950s. So let's get over it, shall we? So, what virus are we talking about today? Well, today we're talking about the polio virus. Now, what is the polio virus? Well, to sum it up, it's a virus strain that had an outbreak in the 1950s. Yes, all the way back in the 1950s. So, what causes the polio virus to spread? What is the polio virus? Let's go over that. What is a fecal-oral route, you might ask? Well, simply poop. Yes, literally feces. That is how most of the causes of polio came from. Poop. But not just ordinary poop. People in the 1950s didn't just go eat poop everywhere. No. Okay, so let's go back to the 1950s. Whoosh! Ah yes, the 1950s, also known as the decade of rock and roll, was a decade where Elvis was popular, diners were popular, and polio was common. So, when was polio discovered? I asked that question myself. But after doing a little research, here's what I found out. Polio was found by a man called Jacob Hayne in 1840. But it was not commonly known to as polio until 1908 by Karl Landsteiner. In the 1910s, polio was actually a very spread virus, and it was actually one of the most dreaded childhood diseases of the early 1900s. However, polio was mostly known for its 1950 outbreak, where literally millions, thousands, and a lot of people pretty much died from the polio virus. So let's get back to the fecal-oral route that I already talked about, which so intrigued your interest that your head just exploded from all the random mishmash of what I was just saying. So, how did people get polio? Well, fecal-oral route, also known as the oral-fecal route, came from poop. But here's how they got infected by the fecal-oral route. Usually, the water was not filtered in the 1950s. It was very poor. So, it was mostly coming from poor sewage treatment, since this is the 1950s. Also, a big factor came from poop from horseflies, or houseflies. You all know houseflies are disgusting little creatures that get on your arms and they poop all over the place. Well, guess what? We didn't have the vaccines for polio, and so then we got infected by polio because we didn't have the vaccines. And polio was coming from poop from flies. So basically, pathogens in fecal particles from one host are introduced to the oral cavity, also known as your mouth. But you might also be wondering, Kyle Andrews the Donovan III, where did polio hurt? Was it in your heart? Was it in your brain? No, it was your leg. Yes, my boy, your leg. Just to show you how extreme polio went sometimes, this is a video of a girl just walking. This is a girl infected with the polio virus. Now, what you might be thinking is, oh my god, that looks appalling. And yes, it does. That's what polio does to your legs. It just look at it. Just look at it. That's what it does. That is polio in a nutshell. So now, what you're finally wondering is, what happened in the inside of your body when polio was attacking your own self? Well, just like a normal virus or pathogen, the polio virus goes around and just waits to attack a cell. Its antigens gets onto the cell's membrane and attacks. And the reason why polio was such an infectious and awful disease that killed so many people was because it was immune to antibodies. Because at the time, a lot of diseases were actually immune to antibodies. Because this is the time where bacteria were getting immune to antibodies. Antibodies did not really help prevent polio. There are also no symptoms of polio, only some slight more mucus coming down your nose, also known as runny noses, as you know. Hopefully now you know just a little bit more about polio and viruses and all that other good stuff that you're gonna learn, okay? You're gonna learn it, okay? So now the glasses are off. How did polio stop? Because it stopped being one of the most infectious diseases ever. Well, obviously we found a vaccine. We found a vaccine even though there is no cure for polio. So, when you got those shots at the doctors, it was probably to prevent other diseases like the flu and all that other good stuff, but there was probably some polio shots somewhere, obviously. So, that was pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this little video and you learned more about polio. And yeah, just remember, your legs, even though they are powerful, they can still be bad. They can be manipulated, they can be eaten away, and in polio's case, I don't even know.